Hello, everyone. Today on the Doctor Who Guide, I am super excited. I am joined by an incredible artist and Doctor Who fan, Faiz Rehman. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You are a fellow contributor to the 1997 unofficial Doctor Who annual by Tracklist Distributors. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to dive into your artwork that is featured in the story Mindfulness by Chris Thompson, written by Chris Thompson, and you did the illustrations for it. First off, though, I want to let people know, where can we find you on social media? I believe you're on Twitter. Is that correct?
That is right. So I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Faiz_R. That's Faiz_R. And yeah, happy to connect with everybody and everyone out there.
Brilliant, brilliant. Love it. So all of the links mentioned in today's interview will be in the description down below. You can get the annual in those links, and you can follow Fez over on Twitter. So, oh my gosh, so exciting. Can we take a look at your artwork from this
Yeah,
story?
I'll take a little step back, Alex, because
Mhm.
mindfulness came at the end of, or towards the end of all the work I've been doing with this fantastic company, Terracris. I actually got involved with them during the lockdown. So it kicked off, and I was like most people, I was actually still busy working. So I was working from home. My day job is in marketing, so there was no downtime really. It was literally working from home nonstop. And when I did get some downtime to relax, I was drawing. So there was those Doctor Who tweet-alongs that were happening on Twitter, if you recall. And so I just started doodling while I was actually, watching those tweet-alongs and then posting them. And they were getting some good response. And I can share some of those drawings as I'm talking to you, so you can see
Please
what I'm
do.
talking. So there was a lot of stuff going on. There was obviously stuff that I was doing with my kids. We were watching various shows like this. There was the Girl in the Fireplace episode. So there was some of that drawings I did for that series as well. I did a few drawings of Jodie just before she appeared, and actually I posted that on social, and it got picked up by the BBC. And then the next thing you know, Jodie Whittaker was actually at um, a BBC Worldwide launch or BBC Showcase, I think it was called, in Liverpool, and my drawing was in there as well. I asked if they could include that, so that was amazing. That was a nice kick. So it got me inspired. I've always been an artist, more of a hobbyist. It's something I wanted to do when I was a kid, but I ended up going into marketing, which was a nice mix of all the different things I'm interested in. But I kept drawing on the side. And some of these you may recognize from the letters page in Doctor Who magazine as well. I was, regularly contributing whenever I could, send those things in and put those drawings in. And the drawing style, which you will see in the annuals that you would have seen my artwork in, is comic books is my main passion for in the art world, and that's really how that style developed. So it comes from a side of storytelling. So it's not just copying images and copying photographs, which obviously you have to do to get the likenesses. That can be quite challenging. But I was more interested in how the story could be propelled with the actual the artwork itself, and that's what I've been practicing, and that's what I was trying to do. So, there's an example here, which is really not. I don't go for the sort of ultra realistic look and feel, but I was saying, oh, what happens in between the episodes that we're watching? What happened next? So there's an episode there with good old 12 and River Song and Nardole in the background on that Happy Ever After episode that we saw with them as well, the Christmas special. So what happened next? So little bit of fun and games there. And then I was also doing things like, oh, what about the Skaro planet? What happened on that before the Daleks invaded? And so a few doodles there. And then as we were going through the tweet-alongs, this is one for Bad Wolf that I posted on as well. And I can't find them all. There's so many of them. I did so many little doodles and things. And the art style was actually one that was developed originally pencil and ink, so on paper. But about 5, 6 years ago, I started practicing with digital artwork. So using iPad Pro and the pencil, and using things like Adobe artwork packages and things like that. So I've been using the Fresco is the one I was using, as well as another one called I think it's called Sketch Pro, and a few other bits and pieces. But those are the ones that are fast and easy to use, and that I've been sort of using to draw. And the key thing is just keep drawing. Anytime you have downtime, anytime you've got a spare moment, try and draw something else. So that's what I was doing. And the Doctor Who stories were inspirational, as they always have been for all of us. who are fans, and so it made sense to sort of practice that as an art outlet. And that led to, I think it was on one of the forums that I saw, Mark post about what's going on with the annual side of things. And that's when I was contacted about I think it was the 89 annual was the first one. So that's where I originally got involved. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a Sylvester McCoy one. Were you
Yes.
involved
Yep.
in that one at all, Alex? Or were you involved
I
with them? You got involved in 97 one, right?
Yes, correct.
Right. Yeah, that's when I saw your work on there. So that was the one that first kicked it off. And that was the McCoy one. And McCoy is really my era. I mean, I grew up watching Tom Baker, but McCoy, and then, it really sort of, I think it must have been around about season 25. I was still in school, and Doctor Who had sort of gone through a very difficult time where it just faded out of popularity and people were sort of dismissing it. But season 25 came blasting onto our screens with so many amazing stories, including Happiness Patrol, which I more of that later. And I just fell in love with it again. Most people who were watching at that time would appreciate that it was a bit of a renaissance that was going on, even though we only had 2 more years or after that 25th season. Even 24 had some amazing things going on in it with Paradise Towers and so on. That's when it really kicked off, and I started to see there was something good here, and I really became more of a fan in the Dan time years, if you could call it, the wilderness years, as it's called,
Hmm.
because that's when, if you weren't a fan, you would have drifted away and forgotten about it. But if there was something magical about those last few seasons, which kept things going for us right up until the McGann movie, which inspired the annual we're talking about, and then beyond. I mean, that was the magical thing about it. So being able to draw McCoy and Ace was a dream come true. It was really, really good fun. And to be honest, I'd been doing it all the time in doodles and jotters and pads for that throughout the whole time I was at uni, and so on and so forth. So that was a real thrill. Um, and indeed, the comic artwork stuff had already been going on. So when I was at uni, I started collaborating with some fantastic writers and artists on a small press publication. It was called New Comics. It's gone now, but the people who were involved in it are still involved in comics. The guy that kicked it off was a very smart. He was an editor, writer, letterer called Simon Boland. He's now actually one of the world's top letterers. He works for Marvel and DC and places like that. He does a fantastic job. As with him, I started working on some. It was primarily superhero stuff, and then I moved into more anthology stuff. There was a strip about an activist, an animal rights activist. There were these what they call future shock style strips. You see in 2080, short, 4 or 5 pages, complete storylines. And I got to illustrate those. I've got a few of those. I actually found them on my hard drive, which I haven't looked at this for a long time, but I can show you some of those as well. If I can just fire that up, just to show you the style that we're talking about.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So, well, while I'm bringing those up, are you an artist as well as a writer, Alex, or are you primarily the sort of writing side of things?
Yeah, so I've so far done, just the I'm on the writing side of things. I very much admire the artistry that's in the annual, and my brother is an artist, and it does comic book art and stuff like that, and so I have a great level of appreciation, and I love the creativity, of being able to imagine something in your head and put it directly to the page. And I think that, in the video sphere, it can be a lot harder to actively create what's in your mind. You need sets and costumes and actors and writing, and I love that with comics, what you have in your mind, once you're able to draw it, can come to the page so very, very quickly. And so I have a lot of appreciation for that. So I love seeing all of these illustrations that you've got here.
So that was back in, gosh, must have been around about, that's a long time ago. That was about 1992 that I was doing those
Wow.
with Simon. And it was a lot of fun. And then I just got busy with work, and then eventually it just took over. But then it was really the lockdown side of things, I think, that where things you realize you've got to put some effort into the things that you appreciate and you enjoy the most. And that's where Mark, the connection came along with the annual, and I started working on those. Yeah, that's what that was.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So when what a Brilliant, brilliant history. I love those watch-alongs. They really were, a lifeline. Those tweet-alongs. It was so much fun and meant so much to so many people. And I do remember seeing a lot of artwork being shared. I'm sure I saw yours at some point as well. And it just looks incredible. What you've done. I was just so taken by the turn left that you showed with the turn left arrow and Donna there with the time beetle and everything. It was just and Girl in the Fireplace. I mean, these are stories that have just captured the imagination, and so I love what you said about the wilderness years too, where you know it was such a creative time for Doctor Who fans, and like you said, a sort of renaissance. And it was one of the first times that as the show developed, you started to have in the 60s, 70s, 80s, people who started watching the show in the 60s were starting to be able to work on the show creatively during the late 80s, the 90s, and onwards. And so it's this interesting shift of people who grew up watching the show finally being able to work on it and creatively impact it. So that's a very special time, even if the show wasn't on air too. So I'd love to talk more about your McCoy era, illustrations, because you did work with Cutaway Comics on
Mhm.
the Happiness Patrol, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's an interesting one. So that came around about the time I had started working on these annuals, and it was actually I can remember exactly when it was. Cutaway put out a call for artists for a new book they were doing, Paradise Towers. So it was an open sort of call for artists to contribute, and they would pick one to actually draw the book. Now I was like, oh, this sounds good. I've got a bit of time. Let me try and do this. I remember exactly when it was. It was January 2021 when the insurrection was taking place in the US. And that was all taking place on the TV. And I was drawing this. The deadline was Friday night, and I was trying to get this all stuff done. So I had about, I think I did all those. I had to contribute 4 pages as a sort of sample of what I was doing. And the only time I had was those evenings. And I must have spent about, I think I did them in about, it must have been 4 or 5 hours. So about 4 pages in about 4 or 5 hours. It was fast. So not the best that I could do. And also I was starting to use digital for the first time. So to do comics, I hadn't really done the comic stuff before, so that was a new thing for me. But I really enjoyed it. It was enjoyable, and I sent those off. And I've got the pages here somewhere. I'll bring them up and show you what I contributed. So and it was there was a script, and it was specifically around what you see in Paradise Towers when Coragnon was there walking around. While the city was actually being built, or the planet was being designed, and how he gets betrayed. So that was the sort of storyline. Some of those pages have now appeared in the back of the Paradise Towers books as well, the ones I did, as well as the official ones that are sort of part of the canon, if you like. So what the script didn't tell you was if somebody was a male or a female, or what this Coragnon looked like. So it was totally open to my interpretation. And I got in touch with Gareth Kavanagh, who's the mastermind behind Cutaway, and absolutely wonderful guy, really friendly. Gave me some good feedback, but really said, "It's up to you. Do what you want to do." And it's an open to interpretation in terms of how you want to go with this script. Let me dig that one out. I did it in, as I said, very quickly, roughed them out. This is my usual style. So I rough them out in pencil. And even though I'm doing it on the iPad, it's still penciling, where I can break out the sort of the thumbnails into what I want to do, where I want things to go. And then that was the sort of ink version, if you can see that. So that's how that looked. And then you had, this was this young what's his name, Pex, right? The character. And then you have the city. So this is my design for Caragnon. So I was always wondering, why was Richard Briers walking so funnily when he was taken out? He was walking like all of the, so I made him have a tail. So if you look, you can see this guy has got like hoofed feet and a tail, and the city's been developed there. So you can see the design that I came up with there. And
Amazing.
I also, this is a little thing. If you look at the design of his outfit and his eyes, I made them look like the eyes on these cleaner bots. So they've got that sort of black line around his eyebrows.
Brilliant.
But I took the inspiration from what I could see on the TV, and that's that thing that you see there. And you can't really see this page very well. It's the best I could find in the short notice in terms of the pages that I had lying around on my hard
Hmm.
drive or on my email. This is the scene where he's confronted by the Paradise Towers officials, but he managed to escape. So they're trying to sort of lock him down, but he manages to. He knows all the secrets. He knows where everything in the city can be stored. He knows he can trigger defense mechanisms that he can make a getaway. So that was that one there. Um, so I submitted it, and then they got back to me within a week to say, "Love it, it's really good. We've gone with another artist on this occasion, but we'd love to keep in touch should anything else come up." And I was like, "That's brilliant, fine. I'm just happy to have the chance to sit down and draw something in the short time that I had." And there's some designs that I was doing in terms of, before I did the pages, I was mocking up what the overall design was, the look and feel, try and work out what I was doing there. Some of the characters that were in the strip. And then, I always try and do a little bit of extra stuff. You don't see that in the final piece, but this was another version of what was going on, the interpretation of the actual script as well. And then about 6 weeks later, maybe 2 months later, the team got back in touch with me and said, "Look, we're doing the Kickstarter for Paradise Comics. So we're potentially looking to have a backup strip for if you're interested for Happiness Patrol, and we'd love you to do it if we get to that point in the Kickstarter." I think it was £15,000. That was when my name came into it, and that if the book got to that point, then the strip would be available. And I said, "This would be fantastic. I'd love to do it." And I think it blasted through. They did an amazing job on the Kickstarter project. If you remember back to that one, I think it's still probably one of the most successful ones that they've done. So that took off, and then I got to work. So I was waiting for the script, and then while that was happening, I was doodling and drawing and practicing what I was going to do for Happiness Patrol. Again, got the folder of Happiness Patrol goodies here. So let me bring that one up. And then I got the script, and it was amazing. But it's got that thing that every artist dreads, and the crowd scenes and rave scenes and thousands of people, and they're like, "Oh, this is going to be hard work." But it was absolute hoot to do that. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep. So this is the opening panel, and you can see this is the industrial sector of the city. What's going on there? And there's a rave scene going on, and then there's conversations happening, and then of course, it's an unofficial rave, so the Happiness Patrol bursts in. Now, I interpreted it didn't have a big opening for the Happiness Patrol in the strip, and there's only 2 pages, so you had to do what you could do to try and make sure that you made as much impact on that page. And it's written by Andrew Orton, who's absolute genius. If you look at what he does on the internet, he does the set design. You were talking about set design. He can recreate the studios that you used to have for various Doctor Who productions. So much detail. So you can see the set of Marco Polo or the Daleks or Happiness Patrol, and he'll recreate them digitally and look absolutely amazing. He wrote this strip, but he also colored it. So it's got this wicked coloring scheme, which is totally in line with what the world of Terra Alpha is. The strip is called Terra Alpha Nights, as part of the Happiness Patrol canon. So that's that, and then you can see the outcome of that here, and then again with the colors on that one as well. And then I was sharing the art duties. There's 4 issues. So it's this book here, this Paradise Towers. It's still available from Cataway Comics. The website, absolutely unmissable if you're a fan of that era or any era. It's just a really good comic in its own right. The Paradise Towers strip is fantastic. And these are the backup strips that are in there. And you'll see that my contribution to Happiness Patrol is in issue 1 and in issue 3. Issue 3 was started off with a parade scene. So you can see here that I took the inspiration from the TV design of the stage and just expanded it. And then there's your crowd scene there. I put my son in there as well in the corner there with a D, Daniel. So he's in the book. And it's a funeral scene that's going on here. So, and then if you look carefully, you can see everybody's looking a little bit hesitant there. They have to cheer, because the guns are being pointed at them. That's the sort of falseness of the whole place. Even at home, people are like, "Yay, hooray!" This is the stuff that's going on here. Absolute blast to draw. And then you've got it's a funny story, actually. The day I met Jodie Whittaker at a Comic-Con in London, I took the tube home. I was with my son. As we were going down the escalator, there were these promotional digital screens, on the escalator. I guess it was Olympia or wherever we were. And the last one we saw was was the actress that plays Helen A. So Sheila Hancock, promoting something, and she was in pink for some reason. It was something she was doing for charity, and I thought this is very, very uncanny. And then I came home that weekend and I had to draw a younger version of Helen A and her husband, as she's laying down the sort of the chocolates and things at the chocolate fountain or whatever that is. So yeah, it's a funny old world we live in. Everywhere you turn, there's some Doctor Who reminder.
That's
But again, beautiful,
incredible.
lovely color work there from Andrew as well.
Wow.
And then Colin Brockhurst, who does the who's the brains behind the Vault magazine. He did the lettering and he's a designer on these things as well. So some amazing work there as well from those guys. So yeah, and you can see this is a sort of a rough of the page, the second page of the second strip, where the mother of Helene has been embalmed and then put into statue form, and then she'll be preserved forever in sort of in some kind of sweet treacle type thing, with the controls pulled by, who else but the Candyman. You can't see him for copyright reasons, but he's there in the strip. So this is the rough outline I did of it. In terms of like these are the sort of embalmed figures that are in the streets, and then you have the Candyman pulling the trigger, and then the sort of capsule opens up, and then the statue is there. And then again, I played around with the script. The script, I think it ended with the last view of Helene with a tear coming down, where no one can see, of course. But I've played around with it a little bit, and the last part of the strip is now you get the tear effect, but you also see the embalmed statue as well, and you get the sort of, this is the motif from the strip from the TV episode, the happiness the smiley badge that they used in there. And again, the colored version just looks, they did a brilliant job there. Andrew did a stunning job of the color work, all drawn in Adobe Fresco, which is something that uses vector graphics, so you can zoom in and in and in and in. You don't lose any of the definition, and you can't see it on this one because this is a JPEG. But if you look right here, underneath here, I've got a pipe, one of the pipe people. So he's peeking out there. You can see his eyes. You can't see it in this. It's too pixelated. But in the original black and white version I drew, I threw that little detail in, which nobody will see. So there's lots and lots of detail in here. Sometimes you wish it was on a bigger format, but it's in a. These are the I think this is the last time they're going to do this. This is the American style format books that Cutaway is doing. They're moving to prestige format now. Like sort of like Killing Joke, if you remember that back in the day. That sort of, we still call it the Killing Joke format because that was one of the first ones. But yeah, this was an absolute blast to see this. And this was my first sort of professional credit, if you like, in the comic book world with Cutaway Comics. So yeah, that was an absolute thrill.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. I mean, ah, I can't find the words properly for just how cool and how impressed and how much I love that you pay that much attention to the detail. And I love that the little reference of the eyes peeking out from underneath. That's just, it's that kind of stuff that makes it so rich, and it is so nice with comics to just take your time, look through all the details, explore that world. And of course, you've done just an incredible job with it. So congratulations on that. And I cannot wait to see future projects that you're working on. I want to circle back to the 97 annual and take a look at some of your illustrations in that, because they were incredible as well. And I was just looking at them prior to this interview again. And the annual is just so chock full of like 50% artwork to writing, and that's something that I love about it, and is very much in the spirit of those original annuals too.
I've got it to my side. You're referring to this beautiful book. Oops, there we go.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you have it too, right?
Yes, I've got this.
Yeah.
Well, I'll show this cover since you have that one, and this cover as well. So again,
Yeah, I've
links
got
in the
the stack.
description. But right, you get all of them, right? Oh my goodness. So yes, let's take a look at that lovely artwork.
Yeah, I don't have them digitally at the moment. It looks like I've missed that one, but I've got to show you. Let me show you something else,
Ooh,
which will
yeah.
feed into this one. So the technique that I use to actually how I do this, I've got them laid up for the one that I didn't. Forgive me, I have got the 89 ones digitally. You can refer to the 97 ones in a second, but it's the same style and the same format in terms of how I would interpret this. And this was my thinking process in terms of, okay, you get a script. Now it's not a comic book script; it's a dense text script. and you have to go through the thing and try and pull out the things that maybe were more visually appealing for me to draw, and for hopefully for readers to sort of want to see more about the strip. Because I think when you get this book, you flick through it, the first thing you're going to see are the images, because you naturally flick through it. That's what I do. And then the ones that sort of draw your attention, what's going on here? You go back and you pick those strips out, those tales out, and you perhaps read those first. So I'll try and do something a little bit eye-catching, trying to do something. And I was blessed because that strip had I mean, it was technically a multi-doctor story, which, you want what's going on here? This is a little bit but there's a reason for it, so that's why that comes in there. And there's actually a really nice, if not medically correct, explanation for why the doctor was half human in that story. I don't know. I thought it was quite neat. It was something to do with the fact that they blasted him with human medication at the time, and that contained human DNA. Now, I did do some research. Apparently, adrenaline that they put you in hospital does not have any DNA in it, so that can't really happen. But it's the world of Doctor Who. You can imagine there must be something else that could trigger it, or you can ignore it. But it was in the strip, and I thought the strip was really neat and really well done. So it was I came in quite late in the day to draw that one, but the process was the same as what I'm showing you on this screen here, which is I would look at the script, and then let me just share the screen again. And then I would go through it, and I would literally mark up what it is that I was drawn to. So I literally go through it, and line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and say, okay, I need to know who the characters are, who is in the strip. I keep calling it strip in the storyline, because what do I need to do? I did ask the team if there were any designs for the existing characters, and they said really, because this was unusually. It wasn't based on the TV characters. It was based on the Radio Times strip, which I did collect at the time. So I did have them lying around, and you could get hold of them online as well. But it was, Lee Sullivan's artwork, which was the inspiration for the characters that were in there. So I used that, and then that was what I based the overall designs on. And then I did it in my own style, because it wasn't based on any one particular person. I just did my generic sort of figure work, and then I used it for that one. So we can have a look at that. But in this example, this is a script from Palace of Bones by George Sanderford Smith, who's did a brilliant job, actually. Another fantastic person to work with, about the Sylvester McCoy strip. And again, so the idea was, as I'm going through it, I would just doodle on I'd print it out, and I would just doodle on the thing in terms of, or in this case, it was online. I was doodling on the actual iPad, things that just came to my attention. So there's an outraged Ace, there's a Sylvester McCoy calming her down, there's a bunch of other characters, and then I start to draw it in more detail and map out what goes where and how I do it. So this is some example, and I did some research because there were a lot of bones to draw, and I wanted to make sure I got that right. So I looked at the museum sites, and looked at what else has big bones, and I was like, well, whales and things like that. So I used that for some of the inspiration. And then I looked at some screen grabs of our favorite characters to make sure I got the badges right. Because in this instance, in the 87 annual, they were very clear. They said they wanted Ace to look like she did in that series. More specifically, they wanted her to look like she did at the end of Dragonfire. So she had to have the red leggings as well, which I was like, okay, I haven't really I've got many reference pictures of that, but that's straightforward enough. So I did that. And so McCoy was in his lighter jacket as well. So there's an example of using the bones from the whales and then incorporate that into the landscape, and then incorporate that into the storyline itself. And that's how, this was the very first thing I drew. It was just, I was simply just thinking, oh, it'd be good to have an overhead shot. And the idea was there were bones everywhere on the landscape. So I did this sort of, I did this in sort of color. I just painted it in, and then I inked it in. Just sort of, it never got used. I didn't use this one in the end, but it was part of the process of understanding what was the world that I was trying to illustrate. And then you have to get your fingers going and drawing Sylvester, and some of the other background characters, some of the designs, and so on and so forth. There was some tech in there as well, so I was playing around with the different kinds of tech that would need to be used. And I looked at there were some robots that were carrying things around, so I used the Boston Robotics. They have these robotic dogs. You see them on the internet all the time.
Yeah.
So I used that design for the robot because it made sense, because these are going to be carrying a lot of stuff around, so it's carrying that tech around. That's how it would appear when it actually gets printed. It looks like that in the book. And then that's a close-up of one of the tech designs that I was looking at. I never used this one either. I don't think this one got used. This was Ace fighting one of the bone creatures that comes to life. And then and this was one of the very first sketches I did, which actually Mark wanted to use in the book. And I said, no, this is a sketch. So I redrew it for the final panel that we had in there, in the final scene we had in there as well. Oh, that was just a rough I did at the very beginning when I like when you first get the script. I just go a little bit, get excited and start drawing. Just draw, 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 draw. Don't get too bogged down with the details. Then sometimes I go back to the script and think, oh, that's completely wrong. I have to do it again. And that happened in the '97 one as well because I drew a whole scene of 8 meeting 1 in the console room, and then I realized because I got excited by it. Then I read the script again properly. I thought, oh, he's in the cloister room. So I have to redraw that. Just take this character and put it into the cloister room. So you'll see that in the book. And yeah, so that's the sort of process. I've got the book here. Do you want to look at any particular sketch or ask me about any particular drawing or what the inspiration behind it? So I
Yeah,
remember.
absolutely.
Oh,
So if
I
you want
remember.
to,
Yes, I've got
um,
it. The first one is the drawing of the console, right? If I remember correctly. Uh,
yes,
yeah, what page is it on there in your book?
123. There we go.
So I dug out my character options Ice Warrior figure for a bit of inspiration. So I used that to sort of like position him in different places, and then I actually used um, I used my imagination for some of this, but I have the console for um, the the what do you call it, the movie console.
Oh
So I
yeah,
used from there we go. Yes, that's the one. So I used that. Thank you. This is very low tech, but I think you've got the idea. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly.
and then,
Beautiful.
yeah, the idea was, okay, how do I get this up and running? I did a couple of different sketches in this as well, and this was the lettering was done by the team themselves. Really nice job as well. Not me, I didn't do the lettering. I try to avoid the lettering as much as possible, but there's some like Colin does a brilliant job on Volvo, and I think Mark did the lettering on this one, did a brilliant job. Yeah, so the next one was basically there's a lot of doppelgangers in the book. So you draw this. So I just did the drawing once of Stacy and just flipped it. And I had the background drawn for the cloister room in this case. So that was that one. And again, I drew these, like pen and ink style. And then he meets Sylvester, the seventh Doctor. And I think there was a specific request to put him in the brown jacket for this one, so I did that. And then you see the one with the first Doctor, yes. No, that's the one where I had to redraw the whole background because I'd done it in the wrong place. So somewhere I've got the original one, which I'll share with you if you like.
Yes,
In
please.
the console and that one as well.
That's amazing. I love these illustrations that you did, and oh, we have one more. One more.
Oh yes,
Oh,
this is famous. The Eye of Harmony scene. That you saw in the TV movie as well, where you're turning that thing and all kinds of fireworks are coming out of it. So yes, Stacey does that. So that's just freehand, completely freehand. Just drew that, in the time that I had. So yeah, I mean, figure drawing is something I enjoy the most. So I do enjoy that. But with these annuals, you have to make sure you get a lot of detail and you trying to honor what the writer wants in terms of the setting, the landscape. So the backgrounds are just as important. So you have to make sure it all becomes very encompassing. So you've got the figure drawing, but it needs to feel like it's in the world that it's supposed to be in. So in the previous one you saw, it was in that bone planet. In this one, it's in the within the TARDIS. So it's like you could call it, a very familiar environment, but you still want to make sure the reader feels like you're in the TARDIS. And hopefully I was able to capture some of that atmosphere so readers felt that.
definitely, absolutely, yeah. I definitely felt like it was a kindred spirit to because my story was also I was told I wanted all in the TARDIS, and so it was really fun because it's a beautifully designed TARDIS for the TV movie. I love the open ceiling into outer space is just beautiful, and the architecture and everything is it's a really unique and fun TARDIS for sure.
And it felt like a home as well. There was stuff in there, I think the new TARDIS, I think it'll be interesting to see how that develops because it's absolutely massive, but it's so empty. So there's not even a book. There's a jukebox, but I want to see it look like a home. So I think that was what appealed to me about that one. There were plants, and there were birds flying around. They had an atmosphere, and the screen was across the top. That was very, very clever.
Candelabras and everything, and like I think the all these sorts of things that you're like, how does it not tip over? Because the TARDIS famously is a very it's a very bumpy journey, and so it's that sort of thing.
It bumps
I'm just
over when it's on in the screen. If it's not in the screen, you can forget about it because you'll go into another room and there'll be cups and things lying on. Well, hang on, what happened that scene when everything was moving? How is that still there? Well, don't worry about that.
right. In I've just been reading the Expanse book series, and there are mentions of, okay, every item that's in free float, needs to get locked down before we, engage the engines of the ship, because gravity will all of a sudden be whatever direction we're heading in, and if something's loose and flying around, it'll, slam into you at very high speeds. And so I just love that with that TARDIS, it's not a problem. There's nothing that's strapped down. Books are not flying off the shelf every time the TARDIS tips over anything. I suppose it could, in Star Trek, it's what the inertial dampeners that mean that gravity's always down, even if the ship isn't. I'm sure the Doctor's got some equivalent to that.
But the Eighth Doctor's TARDIS was actually fantastic and very exciting to draw. I would say it was one of the things that
Yeah.
drew me to the strip. Where did you first see that TV movie? Do you remember?
I first saw it on DVD. I got it on DVD, watched it, because we
Man,
never got it on VHS. We never got the original edition DVD in the US, just the special edition. And so that would have been how I first experienced it, because it wasn't on Netflix. There was a lot of classic Doctor Who, well, not a lot, but a fair bit on Netflix. And then it was back when they still mailed you the DVD in the mail.
right.
You could request it. So I got a lot of DVDs that way, and watched them the first time there. So it would have been on DVD. Yeah, yeah.
For me, I was very lucky because my cousin got married in the US. He was in the US, and so I was over in 90. When was it? 96,
90,
right?
yep,
96.
96.
Tuesday, May 14th. I remember the day because
Yes.
there was a trailer. And so while all the wedding festivities were going on, there was one night where I said, I'm not leaving. I want to watch this episode. So my sister and I, we stayed, ordered pizza, and we watched it in a hotel room as it went out live that night on whatever channel it was on. Because I don't understand the
Yeah.
channels in the US, but it was Fox.
Yep.
And it was amazing because we didn't get it in the UK. I think it's another couple of weeks later. But I devoured that movie because it's the only thing we had that was live action for so many years, and it felt so. But the sad thing was, by the time we got it on TV in the UK, we already knew it hadn't done well in the US. We knew the ratings and we knew the writing was on the wall. But they did an amazing job, and it was a lot better than we dared dream it could have been. And to this day, if you watch it now, and why this annual is so nice to have, I think it really stands up, and it really is a nice bridge between what was the sort of the original series and then what came next in 2005, and it fits in beautifully. And a lot of the things that you see in the new series seem to have come out of the. It doesn't seem that TV movie was the first time you saw a lot of things, and it just seems normal now. So
Yeah.
I think it was yeah, it was a pleasure to be part of that particular book, and I was so excited that it was. I mean, I'm hoping that they do like one for the new adventures as well, because I think that's another thing that I'm very passionate about in terms of those particular books. Which is what leads me to the next thing, because what happened after that was I got contacted by Colin at Vorp to say, look, we're doing Vorp issue 6. Are you familiar with Vorp,
Yeah.
Alex? Yeah. So it's a fanzine, which is a love letter to all things Doctor Who, and started off as a love letter to Doctor Who magazine and comic strips in general, but it's gone on to different eras as it's evolved, and it is outrageously beautiful, the book, the magazine, in terms of what they put together for a fanzine. It's no right to be that good. It looks really good, and it's very much a professional project, except it isn't. It's a fanzine. So I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. We're doing something for the 60th anniversary. And I was already drawing my own little comic strip for the 60th, just for fun. Set in Shoreditch, set in the junkyard, and with policemen, all this kind of stuff going on. And he goes, no, we've got some, and it was Rand Kennedy. And I said, we've got something for that, but here's something else we're going to be doing. We've got a writer. It's Lance Parkin. I was like, whoa, okay, Lance Parkin is like fantastic. I loved his books back in the day, and his comics and some of the work he did as well. And so that was fantastic to be paired with him. And it was set in Shoreditch, and it was a sort of parallel universe version of Unearth, what happened just before Unearthly Child. So they said, and if you've read it, Have you read that strip yet? Have you had a chance to look at that, Alex?
No,
Or
no, I
okay,
haven't.
I'll show you some of that stuff as well. Um,
Please do.
I won't show you the ending because it's you. If you do get the Vault magazine, I encourage anybody who's a fan to get it because it's a lovely product, and also you get a DVD with it, which has got an animated version of the opening scene from Doctor Who and an exciting adventure with the Daleks. So you'll get that Barnes Common meeting.
Oh
So it's another
yeah.
alternative version, and they've animated it, and it's outstanding. I mean, I couldn't believe how good it was. But get that book and have a look. And my strip is like I think it grew from 6 to 8 pages, and it was an absolute joy to draw. Now I started drawing this, believe it or not, in hospital. I was in for a shoulder operation. Um, and so I was doodling away in the hospital. Nothing could stop me. It was just so much fun. Every time I got that script, and Lance's enthusiasm was totally infectious because he got the original 6 pages and he goes, "Well, I'm going to put another 2 pages in at the beginning." And I think he can quite happily carry on with what happens after the end of this as well. I'd love to show you that last page, but it would be a bit of a spoiler. Um, uh, Suffice to say, the last page is the brief was okay. In this setting, imagine this as if it was a Disney Plus budget and not a BBC 1963 budget, and then you can go to town with it. So we did all the things we wanted to do in that last page, and it pops. The colors, you'll see what Andrew's done the coloring in that one as well. Again, really brought it to life. I will share this with you so you can quickly see this as well, just to get an idea of why I was excited to draw it. And hopefully my art style has improved a little bit over the years as I'm getting to grips with this. So this is the sort of the black and white version of
Oh.
space. So it starts off in a ironmonger's, sort of hardware store, and the doctor's, putting into gathering some gadgets for his purposes, but he's concerned about, is he giving too much information away? Is he getting spotted because Susan's in the school? Um, there's a color version of it, which I think I was.
Wow.
Yeah. No, there was talk of doing this in black and white, because I think Andrew was like, "Oh, I'm quite happy with the black and white version of this," and I was, no, the color looks amazing. Keep it because this color work he's done is I love it. And
Yeah.
I shared it with my kids, and they also said, no, it's got to be the color version. So I mean, this is what the current team is now saying, isn't it? Like you can't get kids to appreciate the black and white stuff, so they're recoloring the old black and white one. So why don't we make this parallel version in color to start with? So we did that. And then I actually, my office where I work happens to be not far from Shoreditch. I did walk around and try and see what was going on, but I had to do some internet research to see what did Shoreditch look like in '63, and it was quite. I mean, even things like these traffic lights, they were black and white, which I mean they had black and white stripes. I had to figure that out. Telephone boxes looked like a different style. I threw in a little Easter egg, so you'll probably see the record shop there. It's called Frontiers Records.
Amazing.
And just a bunch of scenes there, and there's got a lot of dialogue going on there as well. And you end up in the library, and then Susan's being interrogated by her friends, saying like, "What's going on? Who are you? Where are you really from?" and all this kind of stuff. And they're trying to figure out. And then her friend spots somebody walking in, and of course, it's there's a color version. It's the doctor walking in there, and he comes in there, and then the whole mystery starts off because the colleague here has a history book, and who should be in the history book but somebody that looks a lot like the doctor.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's like of course that's not me. I wasn't here 200 years ago. Because no, but it's quite an interesting storyline. It leaves them sort of flabbergasted in terms of what was that all about. You can see the color versions here, and then they're wandering back, and they decide, the alternative version here is they're the ones that decide to trace Susan back to the junkyard, and so they go back to IM form. You can see it better in the black and white one, maybe. Sorry, the color's a bit blurry, but can you see that all right? Yeah, you've got the
Yep.
Potter's Lane there, and they're outside there. And again, I try and vary up the angles so you can see different, because the script just says walking down the street, but then you try and make it interesting in terms of the dynamics of what you're doing, and the panel layout. And I mean, there's no description of a man pointing to an orange, but I thought it'd be better to have our characters walking in the background, and it looks like an everyday scene. You have to try and make it look interesting. You can't just have them just robotic walking up and down. And then you've got the sort of inside the sort of TARDIS scene where things are hotting up, and Susan's lecturing the doctor for like, I'm not the one that got caught in a history book, and he goes, yes, well, never mind, let me see what I can do. And then the story progresses. There's another couple of pages you have to look into, and this is the promotional artwork that was used to promote the strip on the website. But yeah, a lot of fun. And it came out well just after the anniversary. So if you haven't got it, grab it from the Vorp team. Absolute thrill to work on that one, and I hope there'll be more of that sort of storyline to come, because I think Lance was certainly keen to do things. And I don't want to spoil it, but the design of the Doctor is deliberately different. He's originally, I drew him like he looks in the pilot, but then the word came that we want him to look slightly different. So I ended up, you'll see as the story evolves, he looks more like I drew him sort of like Lance described it as David Bowie, inspired by Frank Sinatra. It was Frank Sinatra actually that I was quite inspired by in terms of the sort of cool outfit. So when he takes the coat off, you'll see the outfits in there as well. So I had to redraw some of these things because the hat was different. It was the old Afghan hat that I had on there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to draw that. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, I'd love for you to get your feedback and what you think of it. And again, I think the color work just really pops. So there's two other strips in there as well. You'll see there's one that is set in the Kennedy to do with the Kennedy assassination. It ties in with that. I think it's got the Beatles in there as well, which is great. And then there's another strip which is to do with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor turning up at Coal Hill School. So those are done by other artists, and they're beautiful, really nice strips as well. But the whole product is absolutely gorgeous and well worth your pennies cents. So yeah, do have a look out for that.
Absolutely. That's incredible. Well, I can't believe how incredible all this artwork has been that you've shown me, and I'm sure that it is just the tip of the iceberg as far as future projects for you. That is just incredible, and it's been amazing to see your process, and it's been amazing to see you break down this whole process. And I'm so glad to have gotten this chance to interview you and talk with you. And you know, I say this to a lot of people, but just remember me when you're famous, okay? More famous, because this is just incredible. What an amazing, amazing journey that you've taken us on today, and I'm so grateful to have had you here. Once again, all of these links that we've talked about today will be in the description down below. We'll link to your Twitter as well. But thank you so much for joining me today. This has been absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Alex. I think you're doing a great job. I'm enjoying everything you're putting out there, the output. So thank you for thinking of me and then inviting me to the show. Really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.